We're going to go on Daf Mesechta Nedarim Daf. Hey, we're going 3 lines down at the top of the Yomid, where the Gemara continues the discussion of the previous Daf, explaining this teaching of Shmuel. Shmuel is qualifying the halacha of Mishnah. Our Mishnah really said 2 different categories of like yad. It said cases of like mujani, mafrashani, marchakni, and then it also said like second half of statements. Shani toimlach, shani oichelach. Shmuel said that that's one teaching in the Mishnah. The Gemara is trying to figure out why that is. The Gemara ultimately, we got up to, ended off by saying that because if you only said mafrashani, marchakni, that wording actually indicates that actually both are forbidden. Mujani himech, I'm saying I'm forbidden as neder from you. It means me and you, because your assets, the way the Ran explains, I'm forbidden from that. Obviously your assets not forbidden from me, it must be you for me. But because it's one teaching, that's why it only made me forbidden from you and not you from me. And the Gemara will continue asking on that teaching. Today's daf. Something discussed in today's daf are whether a yad of Madrani Mimcha is effective without Shani Oichelach, like we said, would that be effective? The case of Madrani Mimcha is machlekes between the Mishnah and the Brayso based on the question of Yadayim Shem Mechichas having time. Again, like we mentioned in the previous daf, that there are partial statements that not even indicative that it's even about a neder. Would that be considered as a yad? Machlekes Abayim Rabbi regarding Yadayim Shem Mechichas, is that considered a yad? Machlekes Rabbi Chachamim regarding Loshna get. And its application to the question of Yadayim Shem Mechichas, we'll see that the Gemara is going to think that the Machlekes by Rabbi is a Machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim. So like we said in the previous daf, we had this discussion, this teaching of Shmuel. But again, the Gemara continues as we're on the third line from the top of the Amid. The Gemara asks on this teaching of Shmuel that the Gemara had said that what he means to say is that it's only with Mudrani Mimcha that without Shani Oichlach, Shnei would be Aser. Because like the Ran said, Mashma Muda Ni B'nechse Mimcha B'nechsecha. It sounds like that me and my assets are forbidden from you and your assets. Obviously that's going to make you and me forbidden. And if it's only together with Shani Oichlach, that's going to be who Aser B'chaver Mutan. That the Gemara asks tonight from the Mishnah later on the Mizayim base. Mishnah says, I am on you a cherem. A cherem is like a terminology of like a neder. So then Hamuda Aser, the subject that he's saying, I'm on you like a cherem, that guy's going to be forbidden. But the one who took the neder not asks the Gemara, as the Ran explains, why don't you say a lie? Why don't you say, why don't you say that alecha, that I'm forbidden as a cherem on you, should also include you and your stuff, like you said, Bahareini. And if that's the case, the Mother should also be forbidden, because if not, that guy's stuff is not having pleasure from him, must be that guy. The Gemara's understanding that when you say Alecha, or just like you said, Majani Himach, I'm forbidden, and then from you must be you and your stuff. So when I'm saying that you're forbidden, I'm forbidden on you, so it must be me and my stuff are forbidden and you on your stuff. So the question is, why is the Mother not forbidden also from that guy? The Gemara says, where the guy explicitly said, but you on me not. So, he foolishly said that, so therefore it's not going to include it. But the Gemara continues to ask, it says over there, Atalai Cherem, you're going to be forbidden on me as a Cherem, so you on me as a Cherem, the guy took the vows to be forbidden. But the subject is not going to be. Why? Why don't you say a lie that you're forbidden on me, again, includes the guy and his stuff, and therefore the mudr should be forbidden, because if not, again, that guy's stuff is not having hana. Again, it's an interesting idea, but basically when you're saying me and you, why it includes the guy's stuff, and that should be making both guys forbidden. Why is it different than what you said, Medrani Himach, Shnei Masur? So the Gemara says, no, you're going to push, but no, it's talking about we said, but me and you not. So again, if you explicitly said not, but the Gemara asks, wait a second. If let's say you didn't specify, so what would you say, as we said from the previous daf on top of the summit, Shnei Masur, both would be forbidden. The problem is on the Having Sefer. The Sefer that Mishnah says like this: let's say the guy says, "I'm on you a cherem and you're on me a cherem." So the Mishnah said, "Shnei Masum." Okay, then both are going to be forbidden because it's a two-way neder. The problem is it sounds like Hadein Hu Shnei Masum. Only then both are going to be forbidden. Hastama. But if you didn't say this, me on you and you on me, who also b'chaver mutter? He'd be forbidden and his friend would be permitted. But why? I thought only when you say explicitly it shouldn't work both ways, then it's not going to be both ways. But if you just say that of I'm on you, or you on me, it's not going to be both ways. Why not? I thought you said that Mudrani Mach, if you don't say Shani Oichlach, Shantayim Loch, it's going to be a two-way. It should be a two-way. So the Gemara again amends the teaching of Shmuel. Says the Gemara, Ela Rada Hachi Itma Rabbi Yisrael Bechanina. You know how he explained the teaching of Shmuel, which Rabbi Yisrael Bechanina said we quote on the previous daf? He means to say like this. Mudrani Lecha, if I'm saying I am forbidden as a neder to you, then Shnei Masum, then both are going to be forbidden. Why? Because like the Ran explained, the word Lecha sounds like to you, in other words, that my assets are forbidden to you, and it also sounds like from you. So therefore, when I say the word lacha, it's going to be two ways. But mudrani heimach, if I say I'm forbidden as a neder heimach from you, that doesn't sound like it. Now the Ram does go through in greater detail to explain a deeper level in the question. But in the simple understanding, the word mudrani heimach is who also b'chaver mutter. He's forbidden and his friend's going to be mutter, like the Mishnah that we quoted. And therefore, says the Gemara, it's not a contradiction. Because when you say the word of heimach from you, like me on you or you on me, like this, we just quoted from the Mishnah Daf Mem Zayin, yeah, that's one way. But when you say the word lacha, and you say that word, that's going to be two ways. So the Gemara says, how can you say this? But our Mishnah's words were mudrani heimach. And Shmuel explained the halacha of the Mishnah, b'kulan, that all these cases of mudrani heimach, mudrani heimach, it's only on when you say that what I'm going to eat from you, I'm going to taste from you, then then it's going to be only one way prohibition that he's going to be forbidden because he said what I'm going to eat from you. So only me forbidden, you're not going to be forbidden on me. But let's say you only said the first half of the statement. I'm forbidden as neder from you. We said from the Mishnah, Shmuel is saying it would be shnei masur, both would be forbidden. But that's not like the Mishnah we just said. You said that if you're saying heimach, that then you didn't say lacha, so it'd be just like harei alecha cherem, or you're a cherem on me, which should only be one way. So how are you saying? I thought only the word lacha, asked the Gemara, means to you or from you. But when you don't say the word lacha, like you say, just say alai or you say heimach, that's only one way. But didn't Shmuel tell me that if you only said mudrani heimach, it would be both ways? Again, it's a little complex. It's very obtuse, these words of the Gemara, but that's the basic idea in the simplistic way, what the Gemara is asking. That your answer doesn't seem to be fit well the way we're explaining Shmuel in the halacha of the Mishnah. So the Gemara revises again. Says the Gemara, Ella rather may carry the Shmuel. No, the truth is, the primary halacha of Shmuel Hachit was like this. We're changing again what Shmuel said. Time the reason is because he said, Shani Oichalach, Shani Taimlach. Shmuel had basically said that it's one teaching. And the Gemara is trying to figure out why he's saying one teaching. First we said one thing, and then we said another thing, and now we're saying another thing. Is because it's one teaching of that I'm going to eat from you, I'm going to taste from you. That's who the inhu asel bachila. That's what's only forbidden for eating. But if he said only the words I'm forbidden as a neder from you, asa fila bahana, he'd be forbidden even to have benefit from him. In other words, like the Ran says, because this is what's called yadayim she'ein machichis. These are it's a partial statement that's not indicative, which would be a yad, and therefore you're not indicating what it's for, so you'd be asa even for hana. You just said forbidden as a neder from you. You didn't say for what, so then all times of pleasure you'd be forbidden. That's what Shmuel was trying to say. He was trying to say that the fact that it's only for eating is because you ended up shani eichel shani temla. But if not, you'd be forbidden for all times of hana. So Gemara says, if that's the case, let Shmuel say this. In other words, how could Shmuel say Ad sheyomer that the halacha of the Mishnah is only until you say the second half of the statements? Which sounds like that if you don't say it, you wouldn't be forbidden. To the contrary, if you don't say the second half, you're actually more forbidden. So he should have explained and said this. That Shmuel should have said like this: and the Girsa takes the word Ella. If he only says Shani Eichelach B'Shani Ta'imlach, then, and the Girsa takes the next four words also, and it should say, then Asa Fil Ba'ana. Why didn't he say that? What do you mean Ad Sheyomer? It's not Ad Sheyomer. What do you mean? If anything, you're more chamer if you don't say those things. So Ella rather says the Gemara Hachiyat. The Gemara again amends the teaching of Shmuel. The truth is, it's like we had said originally, that when you don't say Sha'oichalach, you're actually going to be permitted. Like we said, this was the original pshat we had said. We said that if you only say Madran Mocha, you're actually not going to, there's no prohibition at all. Because time the reason because you said Shani Eichelach, Shani Taimlach, what I'm going to eat from you, what I'm going to taste from you, that's what Huda Asa, that's going to be forbidden. Aval Amma Madran Himach, but if you just say I'm forbidden as an edit from you, Lamash Madam it doesn't sound like he's saying anything that we're making forbidden because this is what's called Yadayim She'en Machichis. It's a partial statement that doesn't prove what you're trying to say. So therefore it's not going to be considered as a yad at all. My time, what's the reason? The Gemara explains. When I say I'm forbidden as an edit from you, if I only say that half of the statement, so then that sounds like I'm not going to talk with you. When I say that I'm separated from you, that sounds like I'm not going to do business with you. When I say I'm distant from you, it's it sounds like that I'm not going to stand in your dalid amis as we continue to days. Now, since the reasoning of Shmuel is because he holds Yadayim Shein Mechichas Lo Havi Yadayim. If you say a partial statement that doesn't prove what you're trying to say, it's not Yadayim. So therefore, you cannot ask him from the Brisa, because since it's a Machlekes Tanoim, if it's Yadayim or not, as we're going to explain, so you could say that the time the Brisa holds that it is Yadayim. But Shmuel is being medayek from our Mishnah, that's not Yadayim. And we had previously asked from the Brisa, that was because we thought that it's not even Yadayim. And we were showing that, no, you see, it's Yadayim. But regarding if it's Yadayim Mechichas, if it's Yadayim She'in Mechichas, if it's not, it's a partial statement, it's just not clear what it's trying to tell us, that's what Shmuel's teaching us, that no, that's not Yadayim, because it doesn't tell us what you're trying to say. It could mean this, it could mean that. The Rav does bring a different interpretation that there is one opinion that says that even according to Shmuel, Mudrani actually would be usher to talk with him, but Rashani would be forbidden to do business with him, Rechagim would be forbidden to stand his Dalet Amas, and that's what the Brisa means when it says usher. Shmuel was just going on regarding eating. In other words, to say that he doesn't become forbidden to eat from him until he actually says Shani Oichelach, Shani Toimlach. But be that as it may, that's how the Gemara finally ends up interpreting Shmuel when he says that it's only when you say the second half of the statement, only then will you be forbidden to eat him, because if not, it's Yadayim Shein Mechichas, it doesn't tell us what you're trying to say, and that's not going to be considered as Yadayim. Says the Gemara, Shmuel, is that to say that Shmuel holds Yadayim Shein Mechichas Lam that he holds that when you have a partial statement that's not clear what you're trying to say, it's not considered as a partial statement for a neder? Says the Gemara, and yes, Shmuel Mukim Lo Masini Rabbi Yehuda, because Shmuel explains the halacha of our Mishnah like Rabbi Yehuda. The Amma that he says, Yadayim Shein Mechichas, when you say a partial statement, it's not clear what you're trying to say. Lo Havi Yadayim, it's not considered a partial statement, it's not considered as a neder. It's not like the Mishnah Masechet is getting that seems to say this is a machlokes. Gufish shall get. What's the primary text of a get? So the Talmud Kama says, Harit Mater Sechad. All it has to say is you are permitted to any single person, and it doesn't have to say what Rabbi Yehuda is going to say of V'dain and this, etc., etc. Why? Because without this V'dain, it sounds like that he's going to divorce her with this get. And that's how he's divorcing her, and that's the Yadayim She'in Mechichas. It's not clear. You're just saying Harit Mater Sechad. How am I permitted to any single person? But that's considered as Yadayim. That partial statement is going to be considered as a statement. Rabbi Yehuda, however, he says no. It's not enough to say in the get Harit Mater Sechad. It has to say the following Aramaic words: V'dain v'havi lichi minoi, and this that you're getting from me is a sefer teruchin v'get a shvukin. It's a book of separation, and it's a letter of leaving you. Because if you don't write V'dain, so it's a partial statement that doesn't prove what you're trying to say, because maybe you're divorcing her with words. How do you know you're divorcing her with a document? You say, how? By looking at me? So it's a partial statement, and it doesn't tell us how you try to do it. So the Rabbi Yehuda holds you have to say this there. Oh, so the Rabbi Yehuda holds Yadayim Shein Mechichas Lo Havi Yadayim. Therefore you have to say that it's Mechichas, saying it's with this document. Oh, Shmuel holds Rabbi Yehuda. That's how he's explained the halacha of a Mishnah, that you have to end up Shani Oichelach, Shani Toimlach. The Gemara says, wait a second. What's pushing Shmuel to explain the halacha of Mishnah like Rabbi Yehuda? To explain that Mudrani needs to have Shani Oichelach, because if it only had the first half, it would be Yadayim Shein Mechichas, it wouldn't be indicative, and if it wouldn't be a Yad. Look at Rabbanan. Why doesn't he explain the Mishnah of the halacha of a Mishnah like Rabbanan, that each one's independent? And now we have the Yadayim Mechichas, even though it's not proving what it's trying to say, it would still be Yadayim, like we see the Rabbanan hold, that it's enough to say Harit Mater Sechad Adam, that you don't have to say V'dain L'havi L'chem, and now you should be a Gerish Shabukin. Rabbi says, no, I'll tell you why. The Mishnah Shmuel found difficult. My tummy, why does the Mishnah say Shani Oichel Loch, Shani Toim Loch? Why is it the word Loch? Listen, Shani Oichel, Shani Toim. It should say what I eat and what I taste, like the Ran explains. In other words, if you would have said without the word Loch, I would have understood the halacha of Yadayim She'in Mechichas, a partial statement that's not indicative of what you're trying to say, that it's going to be Yadayim. Because even though he already said Mudrani Mimcha, I'm forbidden as neder from you, because Shmuel holds that the Mishnah was all one case, even so, by saying Shani Oichel without the word L'cha, that's still Yadayim Shein Mechichas. It's still not proving who you're talking about. Because you could say, Mudrani Mimcha, I'm forbidden as neder from you, that I'm not going to talk with you if I eat today, or if I eat by that day. That's what it could mean. And obviously then, that's why the Mishnah is saying L'cha, to tell you that the reason is because he said L'cha. But if you only said Mudrani Mimcha Shani Oichel without the word L'cha, the neder would not take effect at all. Why? Because that's Yadayim She'ein Mechichas, and that would not be Yadayim. Shema Mina Be'in Yadayim Mechichas. So Yehuda, says Shmuel, obviously see the Mishnah holds that you need to have Yadayim that are indicative. Because why is it the word L'cha? It must be like if Yehuda holds Yadayim She'ein Mechichas. That's why I explained that's all one statement. That's why I explained not like the Rabban. Now, Itmar, we learned that it's actually Machlekes Aaron. Yadayim She'ein Mechichas, when you say a partial statement, it's not proving what you're trying to say. Abayami says Havi Yadayim, it's still considered as Yadayim. It has the halach as a partial statement, it's going to have a halach of a neder. Rav Amay says Lemon, it's not going to be considered as Yadayim. So I'm a Rava who said that it's not considered as Yadayim. Says Reb Idi Asberli, he explained to me why that is. Because Amakar, the pasuk says Bamidbar, Nazul Lahazul Hashem. The pasuk that we brought already many times already, where it says that if a man or a woman is going to take a neder, to make a neder of Naziris La Hashem, so Makish Yodis Naziris La Naziris, the pasuk is equating a partial statement of Naziris to a regular statement of Naziris. Why? Because where do we know Yodis from, if you recall from the previous daf? We know it from the doubling of the word Lahazir. We said this on Daf Gimel. Now, so the word Nazir Lahazir, Nazir is the primary Naziris, and Lahazir is the Yadayim of Naziris. So we're comparing the regular Naziris to the Yadayim of Naziris. Oh, okay. Man Naziris Ba'afla, just like a regular Naziris needs to have a Hafla. What does that mean? So the Gemara Nazir Daf Lamed Beis, Reb Tafrin says the following halacha. Let's say someone sees his friend and he says, I'm going to be a Nazir if that guy walking over there is a Nazir. Now at that moment, he doesn't know if the guy is a Nazir or not. Even if he subsequently finds out that guy's a Nazir, he's not going to be a Nazir. Why not? Because at the moment that you're taking Naziris, you have to have an explicit statement that you know what you're saying, and you don't have that, even though retroactively you end up finding out. So therefore we say, just like Naziris has to be with Hafla, with an explicit statement, which is this Hafla that we're saying, so too, Af Yodis Naziris Ba'afla, so too the partial statement of Naziris has to also be an explicit statement. Now the Ran explains, on the top of Vav Medal, it's not really from this hafla itself that we said from Naziris that we're learning out, because if that would be the case, you wouldn't need a pasuk. What do you think to say that Yodis Naziris is going to be better, that you could say more obtuse, more unclear statement than Naziris itself? No. What we mean to say the hafla we're learning out from Naziris to the Yodis of Naziris is whatever is applicable for Yodis, and that is that Yodis have to be explicit, meaning it has to be machiches. It has to be evident what you're saying, what you're trying to say. Just like the hafla of Naziris itself, that if you didn't know, then it's not going to have value. So, because what you're saying has to have inherent, intrinsic understanding. Therefore, that's what we're learning out from there too. So says the Gemara, so let me put the beauty of let's say this machlekes Abayin Rava is a machlekes Tanoim. What's a machlekes Tanoim? Not like one of the Mishnah Masechta is Git. Gufish Get, we quoted this just a moment ago. Gufish Get, the text of the Get is, Tanakama says, you just have to say, you're permitted. It's not proving how you're divorcing her. Yehuda says, no, you have to write the dame, this document that you get it from me, you say that the from the it's a document of release. Beger Shabukin. Okay, sounds like Abayi Damak Rabban. Abayi says that Yudayim Shet Mechichas are Yudayim like Rabban, that you don't have to be indicative from the partial statement. But Rav Damak Yehuda. And Rava, however, says that they're not going to be Yudayim. It's like Yehuda says you have to say an indicative statement of like ending off, saying how you're doing it. Some of Abayi, no, each one's going to explain to you why he's like both Tanoim. Abayi says to you that I know that I feel like Rabbi Yehuda. I could even be like Rabbi Yehuda. Although I say Yudayim She'en Mechichas are Yudayim, and Rabbi Yehuda seems to say that they're not. Says no, because I can't come Rabbi Yehuda being Yudayim Mechichas. Would it be funny? Rabbi Yehuda holds that you need to have that it's proving what you're trying to say, and if you have to add on those words in the get, it's only a get. That's only by a get, because it increases. A get has to have a safer crease. Has the book of severance has to be totally separated. But like you don't have them, it's not totally indicative of what you're trying to say. But in general, who said that he would hold that Yudayim Shem Mechichas would not be a yad for another? Shnei Abayi says I could even be like Rabbi Yehuda. For Rabban, he would tell you, I know that I could even be like Rabban. I can't like Rabban. Where do we find the Rabban? There's being Yudayim Mechichas that you don't have to have Yudayim Mechichas. Like I get, like get. That's what you could just say. Harit Mates Chol Adam. You don't have to say how you're doing it. Why not? Because it's Getin Dav Abam and Aleph. The Einon Megash says Eish Chaver. No one's divorcing his wife's friend, his friend's wife. So it's inherent that what you're trying to do. So therefore, you don't have to have a proof what you're doing, because we know what you're doing. But in general, did we hear that the Chachamim need that they're going to say Yudayim Shem Mechichas are going to be Yudayim? Now, the Ran explains that the Rashba finds a difficulty with his wording, and it's not precise, because Rav is not saying that the Rabbanan don't need to have Yudayim Mechichas. It's just that they hold that the Yadayim by get are Mechichas because the person's not divorcing his friend's wife. But the Ram says, no, it makes sense to me. Because most definitely Yadayim themselves are not Mechichas, because the wording is not proving that you want to divorce her. It's just the context that's proving that you want to divorce her. Because you're not going to divorce your friend's wife. And therefore, even though the wording is not Mechiach, it's going to be effective, and therefore he says you don't have to ruin the Svar. But one question, final question the Ram does point out is that from the fact that Rav is saying over here that the reason Rabbanan is because a person not going to divorce his friend's wife, it sounds like the Machlekes between the Rabbanan is regarding adding on the words minoi. We said that you have to write V'dein de have lechim minoi. That this can be from me, a sefer teruch, and it's like about me, like who's divorcing you? So we said, oh, a guy's not going to divorce his friend's wife, so it's obvious it's from me to you. Sounds like that's the machlek Yehuda and Rabban. Yehuda requires the word minoi, so that you know I'm divorcing you. The Rabban don't need it. Problem is the Gemara in Gittin Daf Yomi and Beis sounds like the machlekes is, as we were actually explaining up until this point, that it's actually regarding v'dein. That how am I divorcing you, with my words or with this? The Yehuda requires to say v'dein, because if not, maybe you're divorcing her with just words, and the Rabban are not concerned with that. So what exactly is the point that they're disagreeing about? Is there, you tell me that it's not yadayim she'ein mechichas because who are you divorcing? You're not divorcing your friend's wife. Of course it's your wife. So it's from me to you, and not from him to you. That's the point? I thought the point was that you need to say it's with the document and not with the words. Well, what's the ein mechichas that you're saying are mechichas even without the wording being mechichas? So the Ran explains it's not difficult. There's two sugyas. Each one is reflecting on the other one. They actually disagree on both points. Here we're explaining the machlekes of minoi, that it's from me, not from someone else, because it's you who is my wife that I'm divorcing. Over there it explains the machlekes of regarding v'dein, and they actually disagree on both points. But at least there's a mechiach over here. So each one, Abai and Rabbi, could each explain that although I hold yadayim she'ein mechichas, and the Tana seems to be saying not like that, we could say that this case is different, either because Gittin needs to be more machiach, so even though I hold generally that it doesn't work here, it works here, it's not going to work. Or the other mandama says that no, although I hold that yadayim she'ein mechichas are not effective, here the Rabban say it's effective is because the context is machiach, either because who you're divorcing, of course you're divorcing your wife, or because and that itself would somehow reflect to the case of the dain also, that you don't have to write the dain because l'maisa it's inherent, it's indicative of what you're doing, even though the wording is not indicative. It doesn't. What?
It says in the get the name.
That no, but say how are you divorcing her? Yeah, I think it's anything divorcing her. The question is how you divorce. It's really